everyone, this is Iron Inquisitor here, and oh god, I wanted to do another reaction to another ignorant, stupid shilling article. One that's not only saying bullshit that Disney saved Star Wars, but they also are bashing the prequels. Ugh. Alright. How a greedy corporation saves Star Wars from a stubborn artist. Oh god. Warning, Rogue One spoilers below. The second Disney Star Wars release is not perfect. Yeah, Rogue One is not perfect, I can agree with that, but it succeeds on many levels that George Lucas's prequels did not. This is the second time that Star Wars have been given a chance to celebrate the profit motive of a greedy corporation that has outperformed the auteur and artist with a vision. It's not just that Disney movies are better, it's that they are more respectful of the actual story than its creator. Thank you, profit-hungry, faceless, greedy corporation. You saved us from the artist. Oh god, no. Disney did not save shit. And no, Rogue One and the sequel trilogy is not better than the prequels. When you picture how a corporation might treat a story versus an artist, you probably assume the artist would treat the story with more respect than the corporation. Yes, that's true, I can imagine that. The corporation is concerned with maximizing profit. Very, very true, for the most part. And you can see how that would result in tasteless and exploitative decisions that squeeze every last drop of profit out of the material with little regard for the overall artistic integrity of the work. Huh. And that's exactly what Disney's doing with Star Wars. However, I contend... What? However, I contend that this is how George Lucas behaved, and Disney has so far done the opposite. No. Even if George Lucas did that a little bit with the prequels, Disney has done it infinitely times more worse. Ugh. First, consider all the times George Lucas made obviously inconsistent plot choices without caring about telling a coherent story. Yes, he did tell a coherent story with the prequels. Yes, the prequels are flawed movies, but they're more coherent than the sequel trilogy. When he made the prequels, he made R2-D2 and C-3PO significant characters with multiple decades of adventures alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is completely inconsistent with A New Hope, where Obi-Wan does not recognize the droids at all. Oh my gosh. Well, perhaps Obi-Wan didn't just... Maybe he just didn't mention he knows the droids. And there's so many droids that look like them. Why would he care? This is the most egregious example, but there are others that require explanations that range from strained to nonsensical. For example, there's the issue of Leia telling Luke she remembers her mother in Return of the Jedi, and then in Revenge of the Sith it turns out the mother died in childbirth. She could be using the Force as some allege, or misremembering something.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what she's doing. Her latent force abilities allow her to remember.
This requires her adopted parents strangely lying to her about how young she was when her mother died. Overall, Lucas shows he doesn't really care about plot points that don't make sense.
Yes, he does care, you fucking shill. You're just nitpicking at a simple mistake that's been fixed and explained. Oh, crap. Listen to this crap Listen, In contrast, Disney is so good at consistency. They are actually cleaning up George Lucas' messes. They haven't cleaned up shit.
Rogue One is not only a better movie than the prequels, but it also serves to strengthen Episode 4 by explaining the story's main weaknesses. Why would the Death Star have such a major structural weakness?
Major? That's not really a major weakness. The Death Star had that because you needed a way to get rid of heat. Just push all the heat out into space from the reactor. And you don't really need to explain a weakness. Oh my gosh. You can see fans complaining about this on Stack Exchange in 2011. And the best explanation is it's impossible to design software without bugs.
Not a good explanation, definitely a weak plot given as George Lucas left it.
Nope. That is a good explanation. And like I said, you needed a way to get rid of heat. And it was something so minor in the Death Star design in the original trilogy. It just so happens the Rebels managed to see it and find it out.
But now, because of Disney, Rogue One gives us a very good explanation. The flaw was designed on purpose by an engineer who was a rebel sympathizer forced to work for the Empire. They basically spent the whole movie cleaning up George Lucas's mess and improving Episode 4 after the fact. To be honest, I think that's really dumb that they would engineer a weakness, or that he would put a flaw on purpose. Because it takes away from the tension of the original trilogy. They were so desperate to find a flaw that they found it by chance. Not that it was purposely put in. I don't like that. I'm sorry. It didn't improve anything. In fact, Rogue One, while I think it's one of the better movies to come out of Disney Star Wars, it still has a lot of contradictions and such. And it creates its own plot holes within the original trilogy. I won't go into that right now, but let's continue on with the crap article. The Disney movies have far more visual consistency with the episodes 4 through 7 than the prequels.
Well, yeah, that's because most of them take place around the original trilogy time, and also, it is dumb that We're 30 years after the original trilogy, and they're still using the same technology. And now, don't give me the excuse that real life militaries sometimes use old designs, because they still introduce new designs, even if they might keep some of the old stuff around. Oh my gosh. And again, there are people, these same people are like, well, if it doesn't look like the original trilogy, it's not Star Wars. And the prequels aren't supposed to have visual consistency. It's completely different. Sorry, George Lucas loved to show off his CGI wizardry and didn't care if this led to tensions with the later story. It doesn't! Technology in the original trilogy is canonically more advanced than the prequels. And don't give me the excuse of how the Naboo ships look more futuristic. Comparing the Naboo ships to the X-Wings is like comparing a Mercedes-Benz E-Class to a Toyota Camry. What's my point? The Naboo starfighters are luxury ships, so of course they're going to look nice. The X-Wings are like Toyota Camrys. They're not supposed to look nice, but they're supposed to be rugged and, you know, the common vehicle for the everyman. And they're supposed to be reliable too. Alright,
For example, in the prequels, droidicas are powerful droids that are often employed by the bad guys. Yet the Empire doesn't make use of these droids, which are obviously superior to stormtroopers in many situations. You can appeal to some technology in the prequels being better than Episode 4 through 6 because War in the Galaxy leads to a lot of destruction. But clearly the Empire that is building the Death Star could also build droidicas. Well, first off, with the droids, you have to have a controller, a central controller to control all of them. And also, the reason why they didn't use droidicas is because they're fucking expensive to build and maintain. Imagine if it was much easier to train and much cheaper to train just a common biological person than make droids. Jesus, these freaking idiots don't know jack shit. And also, building the Death Star is completely different from having droid soldiers. Ugh. In contrast, the Disney films have much more technological and visual consistency with the originals than the prequels do. Nope. I'm sorry, but the prequels do have technological consistency. Do your fucking research. While Disney can be criticized for overdoing the nostalgia, this is far better than what Lucas did, which was pay little attention to creating a consistent world. Huh. I'm sorry, but it's so inconsistent that they're using the same exact technology from the original trilogy in the sequels. And yes, George Lucas did create a consistent world.
Oh my god. And they are overdoing the nostalgia. That's the problem. They're making everything like the original trilogy. If you make everything the same, then it gets fucking boring. And that's what they're doing with the new stuff. Just original trilogy, original trilogy, original trilogy, original trilogy. And that's why I loved reading the expanded universe, like Tales of the Jedi, for example. That was so different from visually from the original trilogy. It made it interesting. What they're doing is making it boring and overdone with all the new stuff. All right.
George Lucas didn't bother to create a consistent world because he really liked to use the latest CGI and wizardry to create impressive things, and he didn't care if this weakened the story.
The CGI didn't make things inconsistent, and it didn't weaken the story. Oh my gosh. George Lucas literally couldn't have done most of the things in the prequels using practical effects. It would have been so impractical to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animatronic battle droids. It would have been time consuming and just really difficult to do. Alright.
Disney is far better at this. Can you imagine Disney editing the originals to insert clunky CGI effects that look extremely out of place like Lucas did in the 90s with the special edition re-release of the originals?
Well, maybe I don't like some of the CGI stuff in the special editions. I don't hate them, but it's not that big of a deal.
No! And to their great credit, the CGI effects have aged terribly and stick out like sore thumbs in comparison to the practical effects of the originals, which still look great.
Have you even watched The Phantom Menace? That film used so many practical effects, almost as much as the original trilogy. Hell, if you watch the opening shot of The Phantom Menace, the first thing you see is a ship that's a model and not a CGI ship. The Trade Federation ships were practical effects too. What about the Theed Palace sets? All of that was practical. And that still looks great today. And also, guess what? In 20 years, people will look at the CGI in the Disney Star Wars stuff, and that will not have aged well. What else?
In fact, I predict that Disney at some point releases the restored originals with the CGI removed to please fans.
I could see them doing that.
While George Lucas should be celebrated for his creation of the Star Wars universe. After the original movies, he did an awful job of continuing that universe. He stubbornly followed his artistic vision at all costs, and without caring about what anyone else thought. Disney, with its greedy profit motive, is proving to show much more care, consideration, and wisdom in its ownership of Star Wars. Thank you, greedy corporation.
No, Disney has not been. They don't care about art. All they care about is profit. They would destroy and ruin art just for profit. They have not been doing a better job. I mean, look at the freaking Last Jedi, for example. In conclusion, If this article is not shilling, then I don't know what is. Shilling for fucking corporations. Honestly, just fuck this article. Fuck it. So what do you think of this article? You probably will hate it too. Alright, people. Have a good day or good evening or wherever you are. And I'll see you around the galaxy, and may we all live long and prosper.